Chapter 450. CP0 gives the world the feeling that they are a special existence in a mysterious cloak. They are rarely heard of, and what they know is very limited. They only know that they are the officials of Tenryubito, and the objects of their service and loyalty are all Tenryubito. However, the reality is different. For example, Dustless, although he is a Tenryubito, let alone order the mysterious department of CP0, he has not even heard of it. CP0 does obey Tenryubito, but people like Dustless are not the objects of their service. Royce South, Saint. Just as Dustless was meditating, the emotionless voice sounded in advance, as cold as an iceberg. In a trance, Dustless felt that he was talking to a robot. Although the words were very cold, Dustless could hear that there was no hostility in the tone of these people's words. Your subordinate's hand is too long. After a long time, it was obvious that he was the leader of these people. The tallest man spoke to Dustless with a hint of warning. Is it possible that you are talking about Hawkeye? The brow frowned slightly and thought about it. At present, only Hawkeye, who is seizing the surgeon fruit, meets the conditions. Dustless just sneered again and again when he heard the warning in the other person's mouth. Staring at this group of so-called CP0, Dustless's eyes were cold and murderous. You're just a lackey. How dare you threaten me? Wu Qin sneered with an unruly smile on his face. No matter how strong these so-called CP0 are, in the end, they are the lackeys of Tenryubito. Dustless is naturally not afraid of them, and his tone is full of provocation. However, to Dustless's surprise, even if they were so ridiculed, this group of so-called CP0 did not refute, their faces remained unchanged, and they always maintained the same indifference. Perhaps subconsciously, they have regarded themselves as the lackeys of Tenryubito. All in all, the consequences are at your own risk. There is an essential difference between the surgeon fruit and other devil fruits. The tone in the corner of his mouth was suddenly blocked. The tall CP0 suddenly realized that he was talking too much and then closed his mouth. He turned a deaf ear to Dustless's insult and walked into the cabin as if he didn't hear it. These people are really thick-skinned. Nothing can get through to them. Dustless looked speechless and bored. He thought that he could knock out something from these people's mouths. He didn't expect the so-called CP0 to be so afraid of the special group of Tenryubito. Dustless originally thought that as long as he said a few words of provocation, this group of people would gang up and attack him. That way, Dustless could also move his stiff body. Master, Royce South, Holy Sage, as you think, did refuse your kindness. In the brightly lit cabin, the tall and elegant girl stood gracefully. Her golden hair was coiled up, she was dignified and elegant, her temperament was noble and elegant, her holy blue eyes were full of tranquility, like the first blooming of a green lotus, her delicate facial features were uncanny. Even if the holy sword in her hand has not been drawn, you can feel the vicissitudes of life. There is also a mark unique to Tenryubito behind her. Obviously, she is also a Tenryubito. This person is the so-called fiancée of Tenryubito, Alice Clea. It's to be expected that you'll return empty-handed. Although I've only met him once, his impression of him has always lingered in my mind. If a few words can really make him feel at ease, it would be a fantasy. Thinking back, thinking of Dustless's deep scarlet strange eyes, Clea still has a dreamlike feeling, and his words are still in her ears. Under these eyes, any ability in the world is full of flaws, even if it is a god. Under my eyes, there is no way to hide. It's really arrogant. Clea's mouth showed a meaningful smile, and then remembered the Tenryubito who was killed by Dustless before, and sighed, don't worry about it, let him go. Instead, the one who died is the kind of harmless small character. On the deck, Dustless stood alone and stared at the government ship in the distance. Start something. Recalling the short conversation with the CP0 before, Dustless raised his eyebrows and his expression was a little confused. It's just a surgeon fruit, there are so many involved. After a long silence, Dustless, who didn't think of anything, looked up to the sky and sighed. The abilities of some devil fruits are indeed incredible, and they have escaped the definition of the word devil fruit. The strange and unpredictable abilities are not worse than the abilities of the legendary gods. At the same time, on the other side, there was an unprecedented shock. On the island, blood was all over the ground and deep into the snow. Looking around, there were corpses with wounds all around. It was like a hell on earth, and countless people fell to the ground. The Don Quixote pirates swept in all directions with a devastating momentum, and the birdcage covering the entire island in the sky was clearly visible. Now the island is completely dead. Corazon, I asked myself to be kind to you, why did you betray me? Also, the traces of law and the surgeon fruit, give me all of them without missing a word. Don't force me to throw the last mercy in my heart out of the sky. Doflamingo stepped on the half-dead figure under his feet and pointed the dark muzzle at his head, and asked coldly without emotion. Looking confidently, it was his younger brother, Corazon. Betrayed you? Corazon heard the words and closed his eyes, recalling the past. The scenes of his brother shooting his father and cutting off his head and sending it back to Mariewa were all played in his mind. It's you who betrayed your parents, not us who betrayed you, Dover. His eyes were always closed, and it seemed that seeing this so-called brother would make him sick. Hearing this, Doflamingo's face suddenly became gloomy, and the blue veins on his forehead began to bulge. He asked in a cold voice, give me the surgeon fruit, that's what I used to curry favor with the big people in Mariewa. Suddenly, a young figure popped up in his mind. Doflamingo roared furiously as he thought of the godly figure who had recently risen like a comet. He was full of fascination. That devil's fruit was used to hug the big boss's leg. Rolling around and acting cute. Chapter 451. Doflamingo, who took off his glasses, showed scarlet eyes, and he looked as ferocious as a ghost. In this world, there are only two possibilities if you want to live unscrupulously. The first is strong strength, and the second is a strong background. If you have both, or one of them, you can be safe and unfettered in the world. Who is the person you want to curry favor with? His tone was raised a lot, and Corazon asked. Apparently, he was also curious about the person who deserved Doflamingo's favor. You don't need to know this. It doesn't matter if you don't say it. In short, the surgeon fruit must still be on this island. The dark muzzle was aimed at Corazon's heart, and Doflamingo said coldly. Goodbye, my former brother, Corazon. The only remaining conscience in his heart disappeared, and the fetters of Doflamingo's blood were completely cut off, and his finger did not hesitate to pull the trigger. Bang bang bang, the dark muzzle emitted white smoke in succession, and several fatal bullets whistled out. Corazon's breathing also stopped, and his short life came to an end. After sweeping Corazon's body for a few seconds, Doflamingo's low voice spread throughout the world of ice and snow. The surgeon fruit is on this island. Whatever the cost, find it for me. In the luxurious and warm villa, Dustless was sitting on the soft sofa with his legs stretched. Boa Hancock was carefully pinching the tender flesh of Dustless's legs and doing nursing work. A pair of dexterous little hands pinched the standard, firm and soft, and the movements were extremely skilled. The strength of each acupoint was controlled extremely skillfully. It was neither heavy nor light, and Dustless was extremely comfortable. After a long silence, Dustless's closed eyes suddenly opened. What's wrong with Royce South? Hancock, who was very confident in her skills, suddenly tilted her head and wondered. Hancock was dressed in a black maid costume. Her graceful body was vividly displayed. Her delicate face was like a budding flower. Her eyes were as clear as water. Her eyes were particularly holy. Dustless's eyes were also different, with heat waves. Royce South, you. Seeing Dustless's hot eyes, Hancock's movements suddenly stiffened, and she instinctively retreated. In front of Dustless, thousands of mountains and rivers were in the blink of an eye. At such a close distance, Hancock naturally could not escape the devil's hands. The weak body was in Dustless's arms in an instant. His aggressive eyes were extremely sharp, and unscrupulously looked at Hancock's mature, tender body. The saints said that food and sex were human nature. Naturally, Wu Chen, who had a mortal body, was no exception. The viciousness of the celestial dragons was well known throughout the world. It was not too much to say that they were stallions. Wu Chen showed a pure heart and few desires, but he was still a part of the celestial dragons. Royce South, I can help you with my hand dash. The anxious panic words were blocked by Dustless's thumb. Staring at the smiling Dustless in fear, Hancock struggled to speak, but there was a mysterious force in her mouth blocking her throat, making it difficult for her to speak. Although the touch of your little hand is good, it's too hasty. This kind of thing can't be rushed. In my opinion, it's better to use. Dustless's joking voice was suddenly blocked. At the same time, his hand gently rubbed Hancock's delicate lips. What he meant was self-evident. Just a little hand, too simple and rough. Hancock, who was nearly 18 years old, naturally understood this truth. She wanted to refute, but she couldn't open her mouth. Dustless didn't simply ask for a slave, which was already giving her face. The supremacy of celestial dragons has been deeply ingrained in her mind. After thinking about it, Hancock nodded helplessly. She had no right to refuse this kind of thing. The consequence of not knowing the so-called is to lose the most important thing. Gently touching her bare chin, under Dustless's expectant gaze, Hancock's thin lips moved. Rogue Town, located near the entrance of the Grand Line. The previous generation's pirate king, Gold Roger, was born in Rogue Town and was executed here. It also has a unique name, the Town of the Beginning and the End. Lightning flashed, thunder roared, dark clouds rolled, and torrential rain raged. Even so, there were thousands of citizens and a large number of reporters gathered here. On the deliberately built execution platform of several meters high, the strong and powerful body was clearly visible. Kaido was tied with sea-stone handcuffs, and his ability was imprisoned, and his body was weak. Even if his body was imprisoned, and thousands of power was banned, Kaido was still domineering. Looking up at the sky, a pair of copper-sized eyes looked down at the people below, and a sense of heroism was born in his heart. The place where the pirate king was executed seems to be a good place to die. However, Kaido did not intend to stop here in his life. I'm not going to die. The vigorous tiger roar shook the clouds and spread throughout the world. It resounded throughout Rogue Town and fell into everyone's ears. It was filled with some kind of special and mysterious power. Even the heavy rain that was falling down was stopped in an instant. This momentum. Fortunately, I caught him. Otherwise, he will be the most difficult opponent in the future. Admiral Sengoku on the execution platform was slightly stunned, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. So far, there is no middle or lower level strong person in the Marine who has reached this level, and the future is worrying. You Marines really think you can kill me? It's not like you haven't been caught before. If I remember correctly, I sank a lot of prisons. Turning his head, Kaido looked at Admiral Sengoku with disdain, full of contempt and ridicule. Hearing this, Sengoku just smiled, with a gloomy smile on his mouth. Yes, you're right. This time is an exception. It's because your turtle shell is too hard that the executioner will be the old man himself. Chapter 452. Kaido is an extremely dangerous character. His ability is extremely powerful. He has been captured by the Marines several times. However, in the end, he escaped with his powerful ability and strength. Not only that, he retaliated by directly sinking the prison that once imprisoned him. It is self-evident how fierce he is. If you think you can escape from my hands, you can try. Sengoku's eyes fell on Kaido, and he said indifferently. The observation haki spread out silently, and Sengoku Admiral sneered secretly. Pirates will always be pirates, they are all rats, and it is difficult for them to become great things. In the dense crowd below, Sengoku's observation haki silently brushed past, and even the slightest flaw in the crowd could not escape his eyes. There is a road to heaven but you don't walk, there is no door to hell but you throw yourself into it. As a pirate, your ugly malice can't be changed, and your mind can never be changed. Dogs can't change their habit of eating shit. A few years ago, when the pirate King Roger was executed, many pirates ambushed the crowd and secretly watched the end of the pirate King Roger. For example, pirates such as Red Hair Shanks, Hawkeye, and Doflamingo have all witnessed the scene of the pirate King Roger being separated forever. If they could be killed in advance, there would not be such a violent and uncontrollable scene today. This kid's weight is much worse than Roger, but he also attracted a wave of pirates. It's a waste. Sengoku looked at Kaido without a trace and nodded slightly. Kaido is also a big pirate, and he is only slightly inferior to Whitebeard. Despicable. Kaido's eyes were full of disdain. His life was full of ups and downs. He was also a figure of the older generation in the sea. He didn't need to think about it to know that the entire Logue town was gathered by thousands of Marines. It's your honor to die with a group of martyrs. At least you should thank the Marines. You have done evil all your life, and you can have such a luxurious funeral. Even the pirate King Roger is envious of you, Sengoku chuckled, and his voice was as thin as a mosquito, and only he and Kaido could hear it. However, you don't have to feel lonely. There are people with even greater backgrounds waiting to be tortured with you. You won't be lonely on the road to the Yellow Springs. Sengoku said mysteriously, and with a wave of his hand, two Marine generals pressed a big man with golden hair on his body. Kaido was slightly stunned. He turned his head, and the figure that entered his eyes made him speechless for a moment. Even the hostility in his body disappeared. Golden Lion Shiki. After being stunned for a while, Kaido took a deep breath. Hearing this, Golden Lion just curled his lips and sat down casually. His hands were shackled by Seastone, and he didn't even look at Kaido. You want to execute me and this little devil together? Is your marine so poor that you don't have any funds? Regardless of the occasion, the whole deafening lion's roar spread out and swept through everyone's body like a wave. He was arrogant and disdainful like the king of the sea, full of indifference. Kaido trembled with anger and did not hesitate to curse. These pirates are quite hot, especially Kaido, who has been famous for several years. There is no such word as endure in his eyes. A living fossil of the previous era, you dare to talk big when you are reduced to a prisoner. If the pirate King Roger comes back from the dead and sees your miserable scene, I'm afraid he will think that having the same name as you is the biggest stain in his life. Smart Teeth immediately launched a fierce counterattack, but the effect was negligible. Golden Lion was obviously absent-minded, and his domineering eyes dimmed. He seemed to be immersed in memories, thinking of the days when he fought with Roger and Whitebeard. The sudden appearance of the figure immediately attracted the attention of the reporters under the execution platform. They all stared at the blonde Golden Lion in disbelief. He looked battered and exhausted, but he still looked majestic without being angry. Countless flashing cameras immediately aimed at him. Kaido, who was beside him, was dispensable. The world that was not calm once again set off monstrous ripples. Holy Land Mariewa. In the luxurious and warm villa, Dustless was lying comfortably on the sofa. He had just enjoyed the service of Boa Hancock. His face was lazy and listless. Through the image of Den Den Mushi, the scene of Rogue Town can be clearly seen. It's really boring. Killing 2 people and making such a big fuss. Picking up the exquisite tea set that was steaming, Wu-Chen took a sip of tea gently. The purpose of the world government and marine headquarters is also very simple. It is the same idea as the public execution of Roger. It is nothing more than to improve the support of the government and marine. Dustless Salma. The space rippled, and a hoarse and urgent voice spread. In the empty room, a white figure drilled out of the ground, revealing some spikes on his body. White Zetsu. Dustless suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. If it was not a special event, White Zetsu would not easily come to him. Immediately, Dustless's voice became cold, faintly murderous. There is a problem with Hawkeye, and the surgeon fruit has fallen into his hands. With a bitter smile, White Zetsu said helplessly. He and Hawkeye were very fast, but someone was faster than them. When they arrived at the trading place, the outcome had already been decided, and the fruit of victory had already been picked by others. Doflamingo or his brother Corazon? With a relaxed face, Dustless asked naturally, and his tone did not change at all. Hearing this, White Zetsu looked at Dustless strangely. He thought he would be angry, but he didn't expect him to be so calm. Then he remembered the person who took away the surgeon fruit, and his face was full of guilt. It's not the 2 brothers, but Tell me in the comments section of your favorite heroine, and I can add it if it's appropriate. Chapter 453. Dustless just sat quietly, silently, tasting the tea by himself, and sometimes shaking the water stains in the teacup, making ripples. The little devil in White Zetsu's mouth is undoubtedly Trafalgar Law. It doesn't matter, if the surgeon fruit is eaten by our own people, it doesn't make sense. Although some things happened suddenly, I can reluctantly accept this outcome. Dustless was unexpectedly calm, and his eyes just quietly looked at the scene of Rogue Town in the image of Den Mushi. The reason why Dustless cares about the surgeon fruit is that he simply values the ultimate operation of ageless surgery. The other is dispensable. The cost of using ageless surgery is the life of the original ability user, and it is useless for his own people to eat it. The first task was met with such an unexpected accident, Hawkeye should be frustrated. Swordsmen are arrogant, and Hawkeye, who is at the top of the kendo, is also the same. No, the little devil named Law seems to have been caught by Hawkeye. Shaking his head gently, White Zetsu reported truthfully. These words extinguished Dustless's hope, and White Zetsu was very serious. In the end, it's just a creation, and it doesn't understand what human nature is. Shaking his head, he glanced at White Zetsu. Guru, Dustless and White Zetsu were chatting, but the Den Mushi in his arms suddenly rang. Dustless took out the Den Mushi, and there was a flash of surprise in his eyes. This is what he communicated with Hawkeye. The little devil named Lowell ran away. Before Dustless could ask questions, Hawkeye's gloomy voice sounded on the other side of the Den Mushi. Is it Doflamingo? Ripples appeared in Wu-Chen's calm eyes. Wu-Chen asked calmly with a little suspicion. It's not that Dustless looks down on Doflamingo. Now he is strong, and he is also a big pirate with a little reputation. It is impossible for him to challenge Hawkeye and take Law from him. Is it Vice Admiral Tsuru of the Marine? Dustless's eyes flashed with brilliance as he thought of the great staff officer who recently hunted Doflamingo. Although Vice Admiral Tsuru of the Marine's strength is mediocre, she is also a figure of Roger's time, and it is not impossible for her to hide her strength. It's not Vice Admiral Tsuru of the Marine. Hawkeye said with a hint of complaint in his voice, no matter how fragile he is, he doesn't think that an old woman in her 50s can take it from his own hands. On the snow-covered island, Hawkeye's expression was indifferent. His right arm was stained with blood. The person's it's SSS. Thinking of the mysterious man in the green trench coat, his eagle eyes were boiling. His whole body was filled with killing intent, and his eyes were as sharp as an eagle's, gathering cold light. The SSSST, the ability to control the weather. Dustless, who was on the other end of the phone, sighed and asked, "The world is full of wonders, and there are countless unheard-of abilities. Don't worry about him. How about the tracks of that brat Luo?" Turning the thread of discussion, Dustless pulled the question to Law again. "I don't know the details, but the one who attacked me seems to be a clone of the main body. It's very strong. According to my guess, Law has most likely fallen into the hands of the other party. Since the other party had launched a surprise attack, it meant that they had made preparations in advance." Looking at the blood stains on his arm, Hawkeye said cautiously. "The people he killed before finally dissipated like light and shadow. What an interesting fruit ability. It's all-encompassing and can even create clones. It can even control the various elements of nature. I didn't expect it to be able to control so many domains. It seems like it's also some kind of unknown fruit." Dustless, who was far away in Mariewa, was quite surprised as it was the first time he had heard of such a strange ability. "That's interesting." Dustless smiled with a faint arc in the corner of his mouth. White Zetsu thought that Dustless would be furious. After all, this devil fruit was stared at by Dustless for a long time. Now, even the cooked duck has disappeared. He had worked so hard and calculated everything, but in the end, it was all for naught. "Come back first, I have other things for you," he calmly said to Hawkeye on the other side, and then closed the Den Mushi. After that, Dustless fell into contemplation. This kind of fruit seems to be recorded in the Devil Fruit Illustration Handbook sent by Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, before. As for the host of the ability user, it is unknown. All in all, it is definitely an extraordinary ability. Dustless, who knows Hawkeye's nature, naturally does not doubt him. Hawkeye is not the kind of hypocrite who deceives people casually, not to mention that White Zetsu was present at the time. The situation in Roguetown seems to be wrong. White Zetsu's slightly surprised voice suddenly came. Dustless was slightly stunned. He also raised his head and stared straight at the scene projected from the image of the Den Mushi, puzzled. The dark clouds in the sky were rolling and squirming violently, the dazzling thunder and lightning crackled, and the sharp sound made people's scalp numb and their ears dizzy. A silent and deadly oppression spread, and by the time they realized it, it was already too late, and breathing was dozens of times more difficult than usual. "What's going on?" Sengoku was stunned. He had been in the sea for half of his life, and he had trained a pair of unusually shrewd eyes. This sudden supernatural phenomenon was obviously deliberately man-made. TSK, you've spun a cocoon around yourself. How dare you drag me out and sentence me? You despicable people deserve such an ending. Golden Lion, who had no scruples, laughed wildly, full of endless ridicule. Even so, his eyes were full of horror, and he was shocked by the power of the thunder and lightning in the sky. The Marines are all sanctimonious hypocrites, and the Emperor can't stand it anymore, so he deliberately sent down the thunder to test you. Kaido was also gloating, but his face was gloomy. There was a strange feeling in the dark. The spearhead of the thunder and lightning in the sky was him and Golden Lion. Chapter 454. Thunder and lightning is one of the most dangerous factors in nature. To some extent, it is the derivation of the will of heaven and earth. In the face of God's anger, it is human nature for human beings who have always been obedient to be afraid. In the face of God's anger, no one can get rid of it. Human beings are emotional creatures. In the face of supernatural phenomena that have never appeared before, especially this kind of ability that only God can show except for God, everyone at the scene became panicked in an instant. The thunder and lightning that can destroy all things pressed them out of breath, and their hair stood up uncontrollably. Death seems to be close at hand. There is a voice warning them that as long as they stay for a second, they will die. What the hell did the damn Navy do? Even God is not pleasing to the eye. In the chaotic crowd, someone finally couldn't stand the deadly oppression and left with a roar. The mysterious power of thunder and lightning is the nemesis of all creatures. Especially the monstrous thunder and lightning in front of them, it is obviously aimed at them. His escape immediately caused a chain reaction. In the face of the dense destructive power, everyone was afraid of death. They all scattered in all directions, fearing that they would not be able to escape in time. The quiet scene was immediately rioted, and the frightened crowd was like boiling ants, scrambling to leave one after another, except for some powerful people, or people lurking in the dark who watched silently. One wave is not over, another wave is coming. With a sigh, Sengoku on the execution platform was gloomy. At present, Kaido and Golden Lion have not yet been executed. Now the sudden change caught him off guard. Where is the anger of God? It can fool the ignorant world for a while, but there is no way to hide under his eyes. This is obviously someone deliberately manipulating it. If it is the anger of God, the world government and the celestial dragons have been accomplices to evil for hundreds of years, and they will not appear like today. Bastard, I will catch you and make you look good. But speaking of which, what is this ability? After cursing fiercely, Sengoku frowned. This strange and unpredictable ability, he has never seen it before. He began to recall the ability recorded in the Devil Fruit illustration book in his mind, and the strong people he has fought before. It seems that they have not used this kind of ability. Could it be the Rumble Fruit, which is known as the strongest ability user in nature? Suddenly there was a flash of light in his mind, and Sengoku gloomily guessed that only the ability of Rumble Fruit has this ability to control thunder and lightning. There were also records of the Devil Fruit in the illustrated handbook. Rumble Fruit. How could he explain the violent storm from before? Also, the lightning brewing in the sky seems to be targeting us. If I can drag you down with me, I think Roger will be very happy. Unfortunately, there isn't that old man Garp. In the face of the choice between life and death, Golden Lion was unexpectedly calm, and his tone was unprecedentedly relieved. The successive failures had made him see through life and death. Kaido, on the other hand, was different. Although he maintained his composure, one could still see the hidden fear in the depths of his eyes. Now that his hands and feet were shackled by sea stone, he couldn't use his ability. In front of him was the admirals of the Marine headquarters, and behind him was the divine thunder dancing proudly in the sky. There was no chance of survival. Kaido is not Golden Lion. He can't be as calm as him. He still has a good life ahead of him. The Kaido pirates in the New World are still waiting for the return of the strongest king. Drag me down with you. Dream on. Hearing this, Sengoku sneered again and again, and his eyes were shining with a cold light. Not to mention that he was still alive and his ability was not imprisoned like Golden Lion and Kaido. Even if he was hit by thunder and lightning, he didn't think he would be killed. Sengoku's body suddenly emitted a golden gloss. The dark clouds rolled in the dark sky like the night, and the gorgeous light was particularly bright. Sengoku did not hesitate to show his ability and turned into a tall Buddha. The mighty and extraordinary light of destruction made Kaido's heart desperate. Sengoku, you old man, the execution time is not up yet. Do you want to kill me in advance? If you do, the entire Marine headquarters and the world government will lose face. Kaido's mouth twitched fiercely, and he roared at Sengoku. Once he was hit by the iron fist covered with golden light, he was sure that he would die. This is the highest combat power of the Marine headquarters, not a weed on the roadside. Don't be surprised. Golden Lion Shiki turned his head and glanced at Kaido with a contemptuous look. Obviously, he was not surprised by Sengoku's means. Villains are not worthy of sympathy, and there is no need to talk about morality. The word benevolence and righteousness is insulting to pirates. In the face of Golden Lion and Captain Kaido's sarcasm, Sengoku just replied as usual. Kaido and Golden Lion have killed countless people together, and it's not enough to describe them as a pile of mountains. Boss, Kaido raised his arm indifferently, and a round air cover condensed in his palm. The breath of death covered his whole body. Kaido's eyes turned scarlet, and under the shadow of death, the nature of a beast broke out. I will not let you go even if I die. Kaido roared at Sengoku, and the bark of 100 Beast Kaido resounded through the sky. This time, it's goodbye forever. Hearing this, Sengoku smiled. He didn't want to argue with the dead. He looked at Kaido and Golden Lion indifferently. In his eyes, they were just like corpses. The attack condensed in his hand rushed out. Boom. 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 At the same time, the thunder and lightning that had been accumulating in the sky for a long time reached its limit, and at the moment when Sengoku launched the attack, it also crashed down. In an instant, Sengoku, Golden Lion, and Kaido were all swallowed. On the other side, Dustless finally arrived at Rogue Town. He stared at the majestic thunder and lightning in the distant sky, and then walked toward the center of the incident with indifference. Chapter 455. The rolling dark clouds were surging, and the squirming was no different from human organs. It was extremely oppressive. The scattered black mist was frightening and horrifying. The turbulent dark torrent seemed to be able to distort time and space, and the sky was blurred. What a strange ability. Looking up at the sky, after a moment of contemplation, Dustless retracted his gaze, and then walked forward with a cold face and a dark mist behind him. The dark clouds in the sky were not on the scale, but they were the true portrayal of Dustless's heart, gloomy and evil. It turned out to be him. Although unexpected, it coincides with my guess. He has the ability to create doppelgangers. Of course, I don't rule out the possibility that Hawkeye is mistaken. In the quiet alley, Dustless walked alone, and his eyes released an awe-inspiring aura. He had already guessed who took Law. The person who took Law, and the person who deliberately created thunder and lightning in the sky to attack the Navy, Dustless's heart has been determined. Boom boom boom. The wooden execution platform, under the impact of the Senshi Sengoku's ability and the violent impact of the thunder and lightning at the same time, disintegrated in an instant and turned into debris. Sengoku, Golden Lion, and Kaido were all swallowed by the thunder and lightning and turned into silver flashing people. Bastard, I can't move. Sengoku's face was blue, and his body trembled uncontrollably. He could not launch an attack and was about to fall to the ground. His eyes subconsciously looked at Kaido and Golden Lion, and the scene in front of him made him vomit blood directly. Hey! God is on our side, you are in trouble, Sengoku. I don't know when, the sea stone shackles that bound Golden Lion Shiki and Kaido's hands and feet have disappeared. The two grimaced and winked at Sengoku. The thunder and lightning of the stone directly shattered the sea stone on their body, and the two were able to regain their freedom. Hey, there is a limit to being arrogant. In the face of absolute justice, even God has to follow the trend. Even though the anger in his heart continued to rise, Sengoku suppressed it very rationally. The more angry he was, the more arrogant Kaido and Golden Lion Shiki would be. Moreover, even if Shiki the Golden Lion and Kaido the 100 Beast were like tigers out of their cages, Rogue Town was filled with Marines, and they couldn't escape even if they had wings. Boom boom boom, 3 figures fell to the ground one after another, creating 3 large pits. 100 Beast Kaido and Golden Lion Shiki jumped up and joined forces to attack the Buddha Warring States. Bang! A figure suddenly appeared out of thin air and launched an attack without anyone noticing. Caught off guard, Kaido was blasted away by this powerful force. He smashed through several walls and spat out a mouthful of blood. An old man wearing a cloak of justice descended from the sky. His rough face was majestic and unyielding, his hair and beard were all white, but he was still full of energy. He stared at the golden lion Shiki and the 100-beast Kaido with awe-inspiring eyes. Although the dog-head hat on his head was extremely funny, no one dared to look down on him. It was Vice Admiral Garp, the hero of the Navy. Cough. Worthy of being the hero of the Navy, your fists are really, painful. 100-beast Kaido's face was pale and he couldn't help but cough up blood. Even so, he still struggled to stand up again. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. I knew you were deliberately playing with this old man. Seeing this, Garp only grinned. At the same time, he leaped up and a huge silver light whizzed out, easily pulling the ground out of the abyss. Renkyaku. The dazzling silver luster made people unable to look directly at it, and Kaido was the same. Such a strong light made him have to close his eyes to avoid the destruction of the strong light. It didn't matter if he closed his eyes to fight, for Kaido's observation haki, it didn't matter. I'm not that kind of small character, you want to kill me with this kind of thing. You're looking down on me. A huge fist comparable to an iron bucket condensed and swept out a dark red flame luster. The head of a beast was clearly visible, it looked like a dragon or a tiger, mighty and extraordinary. There was a faint roar of a dragon and a tiger, full of majesty, and then a punch blasted out. Boom boom boom, the two forces were obviously at the same stage, and when they came into contact with each other, a violent explosion occurred, and the surrounding environment changed with the rewriting. The Yonko, 4 emperors, who are destined to rule the world in the future can't be so fragile. Although Garp is strong, he can't kill Kaido directly. Leader, why did you save Shiki and Kaido? They are the opposite of our ideas. Pirates and Marines are the enemies of the revolution. In a dark underground tavern, a few black shadows spoke to the mysterious man in the overcoat with slight dissatisfaction. The man in the green coat just kept silent and didn't speak. Suddenly, he raised his head, and by the dirty light, he could vaguely see the messy tattoo marks on his face, and his eyes were full of wisdom and rationality. It was Mon Chi Di, Dorag. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Dorag explained in a hoarse voice. He also knew that this group of people was dissatisfied. After all, saving the pirates was the opposite of his revolutionary ideas, and he must appease this group of people. To resist foreign aggression, one must first pacify internal affairs. This was the principle that the ancient sages had concluded. To some extent, pirates can barely be regarded as partners of the revolution. With a gentle smile, Dorag gave a mysterious answer. In short, people who can harm and disturb the world are our partners, especially Kaido and Shiki. After breaking out of prison, they will be more hostile to the government and marine. These pirates will attract the attention of the world government and marine, which is good for us. I'm sorry to trouble you. But, Law, please be sure to return him to me, otherwise, I will be very distressed, Mr. Dorag. A ghostly voice resounded through the silent and oppressive space, and a figure came out of the darkness. It was Dustless. Chapter 456. Dustless, who came out of the darkness, sneered at the corner of his mouth, looked at several people seriously. Only Dorag was extremely mysterious, and Dustless felt that he was covered with a mysterious veil. There was a sense of looking at the veil in the fog. Dare to invade the base of the Revolutionary Army. Looking for death. One of them, aware of the sudden appearance of Dustless, took advantage of the situation, and immediately shot a murderous look in his eyes, and without nonsense, he directly turned into a black afterimage and rushed toward him. The ferocious smile was full of cruelty, and the sharp cold light swept toward the head. Vulgar, take your knife home and kill pigs. Raising his eyelids, Wuchen didn't even look at the person who launched the sneak attack. He raised his right arm casually and directly grabbed the cold light that was coming towards him. Hey! A roar similar to steel sounded, and the scene in front of them was quite simple. Dustless just casually used a thumb to block the incoming Tachi. There was nothing else, and the movement was very simple. This unimaginable scene caused everyone to be unable to come back to their senses. Armament hockey. It doesn't seem to be. Durag's equally calm face flashed a trace of surprise. Dustless's fingers still maintained the color of normal human skin. Obviously, with the hardness of his body, he can be as hard as steel. Go to hell. Raising his left arm expressionlessly, his thumb gathered a large number of light particles, and in the dark environment, the light was instantly released, and he looked cold and whistled out. Poochie. The golden light was unstoppable, and the head of the Revolutionary Army cadre had a scorched hole, and the light that penetrated his head went straight toward Durag. It's useless, this fragile attack can't hurt me, Honorary Admiral of the Marine Headquarters Royce Nand, Saint. His whole body turned into ice drags, and he easily used the elemental transformation to ignore the incoming light beam. Durag said to Dustless, I've investigated your ability and identity. I know very well that this kind of ordinary trick can't even hit my body. You know that I am an Admiral of the Marine Headquarters. And you know my real name. Frowning deeply, Dustless's cheeks were replaced by confusion and incomprehension. No one knows that he is an honorary admiral except for Mariewas Gorisei, 5 elder stars, and a few high-level marines. No one knows who this honorary admiral is. Now that Durag directly revealed the identity of General Dustless and even investigated the matter of his celestial dragons, it was hard for Dustless not to be surprised. This guy, does he have spies in the world government or the marine? Clenching his fist, Dustless's face became colder and colder. Durag's mind was meticulous, and it was not impossible for him to plant his own spies in the marine or the world government. Dustless hated traitors and people who threatened him the most in his life. Being able to know his identity meant that the identity of the spy was not low. As for Marines, Hero Vice Admiral Garp, Dustless ignored it for the first time. He had seen the upright and stubborn old man, and it was impossible to persuade him to betray the Marine with a knife on his neck. I didn't expect you to be so far-sighted, and the whole world underestimated you. His eyes fell on Durag's face. Dustless sneered again and again, and then he disappeared, and his original body turned into a slowly fading afterimage. However, your expression of knowing everything is really unpleasant. Have you ever been kicked at the speed of light? Looking at Durag indifferently in front of him, Dustless kicked out. Insignificant skill, as I said before, this kind of fragile attack can't hurt me. Aware of the strong force behind him that was enough to destroy a building, Durag's light and calm voice resounded through the dark space. He could have avoided it in time, but he didn't move his body at all. Obviously, he was mocking Dustless with his actual actions. Boom! The destructive power was beyond imagination. Durag was easily blown away, setting off a strong explosion, and all the buildings around him were turned into ruins. The secret room that was tens of meters deep on the ground was buried under Dustless's foot. Boom! Under the ruins, a majestic repulsive force spread out, and the buried debris was easily lifted, and Dustless's figure was directly exposed to the air. Hand over law, or else. The consequences are not something you can bear. His cold eyes stared at Durag in the deep pit, and at the same time, his heart was gloomy. This guy's ability was beyond his imagination. This guy doesn't seem to be a Logia user, but he can achieve elementalization, and his body is too hard. Recalling the feeling of Durag's body when his foot fell, Dustless secretly guessed that it was not like a human body, but like a monster full of scales. Thinking of some kind of legendary creature, Dustless's pupils dilated. Could it be that this guy really lives up to his name? He can transform into a dragon that soars in the sky. Wuchen clenched his fists and said rather gloomily. He couldn't help but look at Durag in a new light. It's not that he is afraid of mysterious creatures like dragons, but in every world, dragons belong to the top predators in myths, and it's inevitable that he is curious and shocked. Although your flashy attacks are strong, they are unable to break through my defense. Standing up easily, Durag said to Dushless, his tone was absolutely rational, and he was not arrogant. Your purpose of getting law is not simple. Celestial dragons are really selfish. I can't figure out why the old man obeys the orders of your group of scum. Not simple. Funny, that kid robbed me of the surgeon fruit I bought with 5 billion berries. I didn't kill him directly, but I will train him in the future to be loyal to me. Hearing this, Dustless sneered again and again. In fact, the real transaction object of the surgeon fruit is himself. As for Doflamingo and Marine, they are disruptors. Chapter 457. The majestic hostility spread out and stared at Durag ferociously. If he could really transform into a dragon, he would not be intimidated. No matter how similar the devil fruit's ability was to the essence of a dragon, there was still a world of difference. Let's see how thick your turtle shell is. The dark clouds in the sky suddenly became extremely bright. It was far more dazzling than the daytime. Looking up, the void behind Wu Qin was dotted with countless vortexes. Dazzling divine weapons swept out from them. Treasure of the king. With Dustless's command, thousands of lights were shot out in an instant. In just a short moment, no less than thousands of various weapons were shot out. It's dangerous. Durag, who was agile and sensed danger, retreated without hesitation. With such an overwhelming number, no one could treat him as air. Bang, 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 dodging the sharp golden weapon that was piercing towards him from behind with extreme agility, Durag seemed to be at ease. Stepping on the air, he stepped on the air in a weird way and rushed towards the seaside of Roguetown at full speed. Dustless, who was chasing after him, floated in the sky. Behind him was a large number of peerless divine weapons that were constantly falling. Is there no limit to the weapons in this ability? Dolag said with a frown. In less than a few breaths of time, thousands of divine weapons had already flown out. Dolag's right arm was covered with sharp spikes, and he crushed a golden divine weapon that was piercing towards him. The attacks that were as dense as a storm did not show any signs of stopping. Durag was burning with passion. No matter what he did, he could not do without money. Puff! Puff! There must be a loophole in every defense. Even if there were thousands of defenses, it was difficult to achieve perfection. There were still many sword lights that swept past Durag's body, leaving messy bloody marks on his skin. In the face of such a dense number, even with the dragon scale defense, he was still covered with cuts and bruises. Just leaving such negligible scars, if one had to find a perfect creature, only a proud and mysterious existence like the dragon could be qualified. Perfect attacks, impeccable defensive scales, and even the legendary ability to control the 5 elements. In short, the ability was as numerous as the hair on a cow, and they were all the kind of strange existence that was shocking. Is it because he's Luffy's father? Thinking that such a powerful fruit might fall into the hands of Drago, Dustless couldn't help but feel envious and jealous. The number and range of the divine weapons behind him increased dramatically. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Clang clang clang, the ear-piercing rumbles continued, one after another, one wave after another. The golden divine weapons that fell from the ground formed a magnificent golden avenue. Only a cyan-scale armor appeared on Durag's body, which easily defended against the incoming weapons. That old bastard must be planning something. Gazing at the boundless ocean in front of him, Durag was obviously not fleeing aimlessly. He must have some unknown purpose. In the future, Durag was able to overthrow the world government's allies one after another, which made the world government so angry that they couldn't find a trace of him for several years. This was enough to prove how extraordinary his brain was. Although Dustless despised this mouse that only knew how to hide and stare expressionlessly at the distant horizon, his heart was as calm as still water as he stared indifferently at the distant void. Boom, boom, boom. The dark clouds in the sky were violently squirming, and the ear-piercing thunder resounded through the sky. The irregular thunder and lightning condensed, and a thick beam of light pierced through the sky and immediately roared down. The target was Dustless. The speed of the thunder and lightning was extremely fast, and at the same time, it happened suddenly. It was inevitable that the whole person was hit by the dancing thunder and lightning in the sky. Immediately, an unprecedented feeling of paralysis spread to the nerve endings. His body twitched for a while, and even the most basic control was difficult to do. This is just the beginning. Seeing this, Durag just sneered again and again, and suddenly waved his big hand, and the whole sky trembled under his hand. The thunder and lightning in the sky stopped, and all the thunder and lightning converged. Dustless was still unable to move. He just floated in the air strangely, motionless, and his eyes were dull and dead. Seeing this, Durag's face was indifferent. He waved his big hand again, and the strange scene appeared again. Suddenly, a gust of piercing cold wind blew in the void, and the monstrous snow followed. Obviously, it was controlled by someone, and all of it wrapped around Dustless, who was already unable to move. In less than half a second, Dustless's whole person was swallowed and annihilated by the white snow, and turned into a huge snowball that was large enough to cover the whole earth. Still far from it. As Durag's voice fell again, the thunder and lightning sounded again, and the sky was filled with heavy rain. The combination of water and snow made the big snowball more solid. Caw caw caw, just when it was about to show its power again, visible cracks appeared on the surface of the snowball. The surface that was supposed to be white was actually eroded by some mysterious blue power. That's a very evil feeling. Narrowing his eyes, Durag carefully stared at the blue light, and suddenly he had a creepy feeling. He could vaguely see the vague outline of a giant. It's really a wonderful performance. Monchi di, Durag. The calm voice came out, containing an indescribable special energy. It lingered in the void for a long time and did not dissipate. The huge snowball slowly collapsed, revealing a burly figure. If you can really become a dragon, you can give it a try. I also want to see whether the complete Kansusanu or the legendary dragon is stronger or weaker. After that, the complete Kansusanu moved with the momentum, and the long sword was unsheathed. The awe-inspiring sword wind cut through the thorns and was divided into two by the sea. What kind of monster is this? Durag lost his calmness, and said in a hoarse and gloomy voice. He stared at the blue giant that was hundreds of meters high. Even with his composure, he was sitting on pins and needles at this moment, and the shadow of death covered his whole body. Chapter 458. The complete form of Kansusanu was equivalent to completely stepping into the realm of God. It was one of the invincible abilities that could only be activated when the strength reached an unprecedented level. Both the attack and defense were sublimated to an incredible level. Boom boom boom, accompanied by a loud bang, a long and narrow crack appeared on the calm sea, stretching and extending without limit. The scale was tens of kilometers long and boundless. Looking up, even if you wanted to see through it, you couldn't see the end at a glance. Is this your true form? Durag's tone was full of surprise, and he clenched his huge fist tightly. He didn't expect the gap between the two to be so big. In front of the gorgeous golden light, Durag also felt a fear from the bottom of his heart. Both sides were completely dimensional, especially the scarlet eyes that looked at him made his soul tremble. Even so, he couldn't just wait for death. Dense green scales emerged all over his body, and Durag's body also underwent an amazing change. This guy is really a dragon fruit, a rare species. Wuchen touched his smooth chin and carefully looked at Dolag, who had turned into the state of a mythical beast. There was a meaningful smile at the corner of his mouth. It is precisely because of this that it has value. At a glance, Durag's body had already transformed into a snake body that was several hundred meters long. Its entire body was covered in dense scales, and its dragon head and antlers were extraordinarily mighty. Its elegant body completely ignored the existence of gravity as it floated in the void. Bursts of dragon roars resounded through the void, splashing out visible ripples, and the ancient dragon roars spread throughout the sea. The battle between the two behemoths quickly attracted the attention of the navy and the pirates in Rogue Town, and they all looked at the battle between the two prehistoric creatures in horror. Hundreds of meters of insects can also overturn the sea when they move, not to mention these two behemoths. Ow, ow, ow! Durag, who was soaring in the void, revealed to the complete form of Kensusanu, and the hot air in his mouth was blowing out, revealing his big mouth full of fangs. Is it useful, overconfident idiot? A contemptuous smile appeared on his cold face. He raised his ancient katana again and stared at the dragon flying toward him. Then, he mercilessly slashed down, and an awe-inspiring and domineering saber wind swept out again. The light that cut through the thistles and thorns streaked across the sky. Wherever it passed, there would be slight distortions. The sharp roar made people dizzy, and the saber wind that scattered in all directions was especially domineering. Even though they were hundreds of meters away, they still felt a prickling sensation on their skin. Poochie, even though its whole body was protected by hard scales, Durag was still covered with wounds. Blood splashed everywhere. The dragon that was roaming in the sky suddenly fell down and turned into a dead snake on the ground. Its aura was so weak that it could be ignored. It was struggling at death's door, only relying on its instinct to float. You're surprisingly weak, dragon, Dustless curled his lips in disdain. Just as he was about to remove the complete Kensusanu, the arrogant dragon raised its head again and glared at Dustless ferociously while speaking in human language. Then I really disappoint you. After suffering such a serious injury, Durag's vitality was unexpectedly strong. It still maintained a state of high spirits. Its dragon eyes were glaring at Dustless, and its prestige was not reduced. A strange color flashed in its eyes from time to time, as if it was calculating the odds of victory. Let's take a gamble. After careful calculation, the reason in Durag's eyes was replaced by madness. When it was about to launch a sneak attack, Dustless's cold voice spread in the vast night. Until now, you still think that you still have the confidence to defeat me. Shaking his head helplessly, Dustless really didn't know where this guy's confidence came from. Now that his head was broken and bleeding, he still maintained his eagerness to try. But then again, this guy is such a powerful fruit, I might as well make use of it. The value of controlling him is far better than killing him. With a gleam in his eyes, Dustless secretly decided. According to the ability shown by Durag before, the dragon fruit he used should have the ability to control the 5 elements. The strength of the ability can be imagined. Especially at such a young age, Durag obviously hasn't exerted the fruit's ability to the limit. If he wants to exert the dragon fruit to the fullest, he still has a long way to go. Don't worry, I changed my mind. Instead of killing you directly, it's better to keep you in captivity. After squeezing out your value, I'll kill you like garbage. Dustless in Kensusanu had a gloomy face, and the laughter from his mouth made people's scalp numb. The scarlet 5-pointed star eternal kaleidoscope was even more evil and demonic. It would be a pity to kill Durag directly like this, especially the dragon fruit he used. Dustless was also very envious of the ability to transform into a dragon. If I can snatch the dark fruit one day in the future, with my body's toughness, I can definitely have the same fruit's ability as Blackbeard. At that time, I can kill Durag and obtain his ability. Thinking of Blackbeard who dominated the sea in the future, Dustless's eyes were filled with fanaticism. The reason why Blackbeard could devour other fruits was firstly because of the dark fruit's ability, and secondly because of his special body structure. On the surface, it was similar to a human's, but in reality, there was a world of difference. Dustless didn't think that his body was worse than Blackbeard's, and he even had an advantage over him. The only thing he lacked was the dark fruit. Want to control me? Dream on. Durag roared indignantly. No matter how calm he was angered by Dustless. Dustless's words clearly meant that he wanted to raise him as a slave. This was intolerable. Dream on. I don't like to dream, and you seem to have entered the end of the predicament. You are in a dilemma. Hearing this, Wu Chen just quietly stared at Durag's body that was full of wounds. He couldn't help but sigh secretly. Although there was the factor of bullying the weak now. Chapter 459. In the future, he could be called the most vicious criminal in the world, which also reflected what kind of person Durag was. If he was an ordinary person, the world government would not give him such a good name to set him off. Before you were in your best state, you could only withstand one move. Now with this kind of behavior, the threat to me is even less. Your dying struggle has no effect except for more wounds. Durag in front of him was covered in blood, and wounds of various sizes were all over his body. His breath was weak, and he was no different from an old man in the wind. In the eyes of Dustless, he was already a lamb waiting to be slaughtered, and his life was in his hands. If you can, I will give it a try. I will not bow to a villain like you even if I die. Durag didn't want to talk nonsense. He was a man of ideals and beliefs. If it were other conditions, he might be able to endure it. Durag understood the principle that a real man should know when to stretch and when to shrink. However, Dustless's conditions exceeded the limit of tolerance. The leader of the revolutionary army became a slave who shook his head and begged for mercy in order to survive. He couldn't do it no matter how broad-minded he was. I won't accept people like you even if you really bow your head. Shaking his head, Dustless said casually. Durag's ambition is known to the world. His ambition is not limited to an island or a country. The so-called dream is to liberate all mankind. Dustless will also be uneasy with such an ambitious explosive around him. It is better to directly modify his memory. You don't seem to understand the situation. You may be enough to devour the whole world, and you will not be liked by anyone, and I am no exception. The golden evil light converged in an instant, and the huge giant disappeared. Dustless floated alone in the boundless sky, and his left eye began to undergo amazing changes. With a lavender base, a circle of mysterious black lines spread out, and 9 mysterious black magatama hung on it. What a strange eye. The information collected before did not mention that he had this eye. With a cautious look, Durag's dragon eyes were full of vigilance. In the next second, Durag's body also returned to its normal human form. It was not difficult to see that maintaining that state was very strenuous. Activating the devil fruit consumed physical strength. The previous dragon god state consumed dozens of times more physical strength than usual. Even after years of hard training, he still felt tired. He was panting, and cold sweat was dripping from his temples uncontrollably. You're really in a sorry state. You can only say that you're a snake in a dragon's coat. You have a golden exterior and a rotten interior. An emotionless voice came out of Dustless's throat. After Durag got out of this state, he was covered in blood. The long and narrow wounds almost swallowed him whole. If it weren't for the dragon fruit's powerful vitality, he might have died long ago. Wallow in your dreams forever. Just a glance, the so-called most vicious criminal in the world will forever wallow in the world of dreams. Nothing will happen if you voluntarily hand over law. Why do you have to end up like this? Falling beside Drago, Dustless stared at Drago, who had completely turned into a walking corpse, and whispered. As the saying goes, a good death is better than a bad life. Maybe if it were someone else, they would choose to compromise. The powerful eye power of Rinzai Sharingan is not something that Dorag can bear. To be conservative, Dustless chose to use the right eye with a slightly weaker eye power, Tensigan, to search for traces of law. Pretending to be a savior, it turns out that the bad things he did are no less than me. Dustless looked at Drago with disdain, and there was a trace of contempt in his eyes. He thought that this old guy was really a god who saved the world, but after reading the memory in his mind, he found that his idea was too simple. Now the Revolutionary Army is only at the beginning of its establishment, its prestige is not enough, and it has not made any substantial action. It is active in the dark world, and life is difficult. Some people inevitably feel hesitant about the future, and they will shrink back and choose to be deserters. Most of these people are secretly executed. Hypocritical to the extreme. After a while, after reading all the memories of Drago, Dustless had mixed feelings. It is undeniable that Drago really has the revenge to unify the world, but his means are not very flattering. The reason why the Revolutionary Army is so low-key is that many people are looking for power rocks and ancient weapons. Both are weapons of mass destruction, and Drago obviously can't play with them. The ambition is not small. Pluton, Tian Wang, and Sea King all want to take it for themselves. With a sneer, Dustless's handsome face was full of sarcasm. The Revolutionary Army is a group of uncouth people. It is impossible to get the ancient weapons. They who don't know the poneglyph will never find the location of the ancient weapons. In the whole world, only the survivor of O'Hara can understand the real poneglyph and can interpret the place where the ancient weapons are sleeping. A mysterious energy fluctuation gushed out from his palm and invaded Durag's mind. Dustless was rewriting Durag's memory. The memory of the past didn't change, but there was one more special command: to be loyal to him forever. After a while, Drago's look returned to normal. He still maintained the silence of the past. His wise and deep eyes were calm, and his eyes were full of respect when he looked at Dustless. One sentence also destroyed the image of this ferocious criminal that the world feared. Master, hearing this, Dustless nodded expressionlessly. The word master sounded very awkward and made him very uncomfortable. He originally wanted to correct Dragondark Fruit and change the way he addressed Dragondark Fruit, but after thinking about it, he gave up. After obtaining the Dark Fruit, Dustless would personally kill him and seize the ability of the Dragon Fruit. Ah. Chapter 460. Time flew by, and 3 days passed quietly between his fingers. Dustless Meriewell looked at the morning paper of the next day with interest, and the most conspicuous banner clearly left such words. A large number of pirates in Rogue Town were all annihilated by the Marine without any escape. Shiki was killed on the spot, and Kaido was seriously injured and his whereabouts are unknown. His whereabouts are unknown. To some extent, he escaped. It is undeniable that Kaido does have that ability. After a moment of silence, Dustless's fingers tapped rhythmically on the transparent table. Whether it was the 100-beast Kaido or the Golden Lion Shiki, they were just passers-by in his long destiny, insignificant. He once again put on a desperate escape for the world. He deserves to be one of the Yonko, 4 emperors, in the future. Recalling Kaido's past, his heart was as calm as water. He was a person who performed miracles. Even if he slipped away from the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, Dustless would not be surprised. He was captured 18 times when he challenged the other Yonko, 4 emperors, and the Marine. He was also tortured more than 1,000 times. Kaido had been sentenced to death 40 times. When he was hanged, his chains would break. When he was pressed onto the guillotine, his machete would shatter. When he was stabbed by a spear, his spear would break. He had sunk as many as 9 huge prison ships. This incredible record is enough to make the strong people all over the world afraid. It's really boring, those guys have been dustless to this point in order to save their face. Dustless said with a sigh of relief. Dustless saw the scene in Rogue Town that day, and it was indeed as recorded in the newspaper, but the newspaper did not mention anything about the heavy losses on their side. Obviously, the Marine deliberately concealed the truth of the matter. This kind of thing is not surprising. It is the government's strength to invert right and wrong. Regardless of Dustless's Tenryubito face, Hawkeye said straightforwardly. Hearing that, Wu-chin casually shrugged his shoulders and smiled. He started to recall the initiator of all this, Dolag. Everything was thanks to that old man. After tampering with his memory, Dustless did not make things difficult for him. He was still the former leader of the Revolutionary Army, but he added a lot of spice to his memory. Search for the whereabouts of Nico Robin. Only by grabbing this key would he be able to open Pandora's ink box. Marine Headquarters Fleet Admiral Sky will be promoted to the position of Fleet Admiral, and the new Admiral Sengoku will take over Sky's position and become the next Marine Fleet Admiral. Only in Hawkeye and Dustless's room, White Zetsu suddenly popped out of the ground and revealed even more shocking news. Hearing this, even with Hawkeye's calm temperament, he didn't recover for a while, his pupils dilated. The replacement of the Marine Fleet Admiral is not a trivial matter, the scope of indirect influence affects the whole world situation. Warring states, only he is qualified. Dustless said with a look of understanding in his eyes. Dustless, who knew this, was unusually calm, but gently nodded. Although he didn't know when warring states would be promoted to the position of Fleet Admiral, he was sure that the person who would replace Sky would be warring states. Because so far, warring states is the only admiral in the Marine Headquarters and the only one who is eligible to be promoted to Fleet Admiral. Garp refused to be promoted to Admiral. Can the news be confirmed? White Zetsu. Looking up, Dustless asked calmly. No matter how Hawkeye reacted, he still cared about the accuracy of the news. After warring states became the Marine Fleet Admiral, one of the major decisions laid the foundation of the whole world. This is natural, warring states and Sky just came out of the office of the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. I am afraid it will not be long before they become Fleet Admiral Warring States and Sky Admiral. White Zetsu said confidently. Since the last time he was caught by the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, and even half of his body was burned, he retreated and began to spy carefully. Despite this, he still occasionally heard the conversation between Warring States and Sky. But the strange thing is that Warring States is obviously promoted to Fleet Admiral, but his face is unexpectedly ugly and scary. White Zetsu was puzzled when he remembered the gloomy face of Warring States that day. Promotion is a good thing, but Admiral Sensei, looked like he had lost his parents, which really made White Zetsu confused. This is something new. Hearing this, Hawkeye also interjected with curiosity. Promotion to Marine Fleet Admiral with a sad face, but the secret behind it is worth exploring. How is Fleet Admiral Sky's performance? If I didn't guess wrong, he should have the same ugly expression as Warring States. Looking at White Zetsu with a smile, Dustless asked mysteriously. He had already faintly guessed the content of the conversation between the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, and Sensei, and Fleet Admiral Sky. Yes, Warring States and Sky's faces are extremely ugly. White Zetsu nodded when he heard the words, and the facts coincided with Dustless's guess. With a strange smile on the corner of his mouth, Dustless picked up the straight teacup on the table and took a sip with a pleasant look. His deep eyes were wise and full of rationality. As a Marine, it is a righteous force that defends the world with absolute justice. Naturally, it will not be easily defeated. Sky and Warring States are among the best among them. Now the strange face is really strange. If I didn't guess wrong, the deformed product of 7 Warlords of the Sea is about to be born. Dustless secretly murmured, although his guess is very certain. As a marine of absolute justice, he naturally hates evil pirates, and Seven Warlords of the Sea is a special organization, an extreme pirate in the name of justice. Warring states and Sky have spent most of their lives dealing with pirates, and they are faced with the dilemma of suddenly joining forces with pirates. It must be difficult for them to accept it. Both in public and private, there is a feeling of betrayal. Their former comrades have fallen under the blade of the pirates, and the Marines shouldering the flag of justice are colluding with the pirates. This is no different from slapping their own face. What can you do if you struggle? In the end, your Marine is just the face of the government. It is dispensable. Walking out of the window, Dustless sighed with mixed feelings as he stared at the slowly dissipating Marine battleship in the distance. Strength is power, even if the Marine headquarters is unwilling, they can only bow their head. Chapter 461. The only thing that interests Dustless is that both Boa Hancock and Hawkeye have been tamed by him, and the future Shichibukai is equal to the lack of two suitable candidates. The position of Shichibukai is not something that can be done easily. At the very least, it is suitable to be a famous big pirate, and their strength must be recognized by the world. Let's go with the flow, these trivial things, leave it to the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, to worry about, it has nothing to do with me. With a silent sigh, the confusion disappeared, and Dustless was too lazy to entangle. The world government and Tenryubito are inextricably linked, but they are not very involved. Tenryubito is the behind-the-scenes boss of the government, and they can take care of the world without worrying about their employees. What's more, the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, will not ask for help from Tenryubito. Of course, they are more direct and disdainful. More than 99% of Tenryubito are synonymous with incompetence and uselessness in their eyes. There is one more thing, as if thinking of something, White Zetsu suddenly opened his mouth, and a strange color flashed in his eyes. It was originally a trivial matter, but after thinking about the cause and effect, he felt that it was necessary to tell Dustless. The recent sailing route of the Don Quixote pirates is a bit strange. After a moment of silence, White Zetsu spoke. A day ago, the Don Quixote pirates were still circling in the New World, and now the sailing route is completely opposite, and the destination is even more strange. Don Quixote pirates. Hearing this, Dustless frowned slightly, and a trace of dissatisfaction flashed in his eyes. Don Quixote Doflamingo is now just a small character, and Dustless can't see it, and it's an insignificant route problem. Seeing Dustless showing signs of anger, White Zetsu quickly said, the sailing track of the Don Quixote pirates is completely opposite from the original, and the destination seems to be sailing in the direction of Mariewa. With a sigh of relief, White Zetsu knew the truth, and such a strange sailing route was indeed too abnormal. Mariewa. Could it be that Doflamingo is going to turn over a new leaf and be reborn after surrendering himself? Hawkeye was obviously quite surprised and then joked in boredom. Doflamingo is a very evil pirate. He has done countless bad things. At a young age, the bounty on his head is much higher than that of some old pirates. Turn yourself in and repent. Unless the sun rises in the west. Rolling his eyes, Dustless shook his head and continued to analyze. Doflamingo is a different kind of pirate. His purpose is not as simple as other big pirates. He is meticulous and will use anyone he can to achieve his purpose. At such a young age, Doflamingo had sent Virgo to infiltrate the navy, starting from the most basic soldier. It could be seen that Doflamingo was a patient person. You dare to come to Mariewa on your own initiative. The calm eyes of the ancient well splashed with faint ripples, and the corners of his mouth outlined an arc of interest. After a moment's deliberation, Yang Ling's eyes regained their calm. He could vaguely guess the reason for Doflamingo's visit. It seems that he is going to lay his cards on the table. His courage and courage are not small. In the past, the reason why the Marines chased after Doflamingo, according to Dustless's speculation, was that they did not know his identity as a Tenryubito, and the second reason was that some Tenryubito were behind it. Doflamingo knows the so-called Mariewa national treasure. Although he doesn't know the specific content, it must be related to the life and death of Tenryubito, so it is not impossible for the Marines to chase Doflamingo behind his back. However, the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, are all old and cunning people. Even if he is a Tenryubito, if he is so bold, the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, may kill him. The status of Tenryubito is higher than the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, but in the end, the world is still respected by the strong, and only a Tenryubito like Dustless can face the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, calmly. As for those Tenryubito who are lazy all day long, they may not have the confidence of Dustless. Young master, what we are doing is no different from looking for death, we are just walking into a trap. On the calm sea, a large ship sailed at high speed. The bow was a fiery red bird, and a strong man with pink feathers stood on it, looking at the sea in front of him blankly. His heart was as calm as stagnant water. Behind him were the family cadres of the Don Quixote pirates, as well as the crew. Captain, Marines Vice Admiral Tsuru could easily chase us all over the world. If we go to the world government's nest like this, 100 lives will not be enough. The sloppy man Treble persuaded the tall man at the bow of the ship, and his heart was extremely bitter. When mentioning the word, captain, Treble deliberately emphasized the word, hoping that Doflamingo could take responsibility and not do stupid things. Law and the surgeon fruit could be restarted if they disappeared. Entering the tiger's mouth meant that they had completely stepped into hell. There is no doubt that the expressionless man with bronze skin in the bow of the ship is Doflamingo. Don't worry, Mariewa, I will go when I want to go. No one can stop me. Those 5 guys have to step aside. Hearing this, Doflamingo's mouth swept with an arrogant smile, and his cold heart was filled with warmth. After personally executing the traitor Corazon, he has regarded these crew members as family. Jumping off the bow and looking at the crew, Doflamingo nodded with satisfaction. But then again, you don't have to go with me. Those guys won't care about you. Doflamingo said in a deep voice, he can't shelter the crew who accompany him day and night. They won't dare to touch me. I'm different from those rubbish Tenryubito. Looking at the dark surface in the distance, Doflamingo smiled confidently. The unprecedented confidence in his tone made the crew tactfully shut their mouths. Within the Don Quixote pirates, he is the dictator, and no one can question Doflamingo's will, as well as his words and deeds. Thank you. If you like this book, tell me about the heroine you like. If conditions permit, I will add it. Chapter 462. Doflamingo's unbridled laughter resounded through the endless sky. He was extremely arrogant and proud. He looked straight ahead, embracing the entire sky. It was as if the entire surface of the sea and the entire world were right in front of his eyes. He could see everything with a single glance. The whole world, he didn't want to look at it as an equal, but he looked at it as a ruler and looked down on the ugliness of human nature. Doflamingo once swore that he would retaliate in his own way against this dirty world ruled by celestial dragons. The members of the Don Quixote family looked at each other and bowed their heads silently. Doflamingo was cruel to the enemy, but he treated his own people as his family. There was nothing to say. Brother, Treble was about to passionately choose to die with Doflamingo. Although the latter was quite moved, he waved his hand lightly. The so-called world government's nest, Mariewa, was no different from an afternoon stroll in the back garden in his eyes. I'm going to rob them, not to die. You will only be a burden if you follow me. Doflamingo's eyes were like torches, and he made the final decision. The world government was not a tourist destination, but a tiger's den. The government was worried about his identity as a celestial dragon, but they had no scruples about this group of crew members. It was impossible to directly catch or execute them. "Young master, you are so obsessed with the world government, is it?" Treble, who was sloppy and smelly, twisted his fat body and walked to Doflamingo's side, and said in a voice that could only be heard by two people, "Is it possible that you want to seek their protection?" Treble's words were shocking, and Doflamingo just looked at him deeply, then nodded heavily, completely ignoring the disgusting smell on his body as if it didn't exist. "We are big pirates in the New World. The government has no reason to accept us. In my opinion, as long as we come to the door, we will be locked in the deep-sea prison." The world government was sometimes more despicable than pirates. This was known to the world. In Treble's eyes, the government was an outlaw dressed in the cloak of justice. Every time they committed murder, they would dress up with the word "justice" in gorgeous clothes. He also knew why Doflamingo sought help from the government. Back then, he didn't agree with Doflamingo's proposal, but he couldn't do anything about it. In the end, Doflamingo did it without hesitation. "No problem, I have found a big boss who can accept us, and he must be tempted by the chips I took out." Doflamingo looked at the blue sky in the distance and said with certainty. The oncoming sea breeze blew Doflamingo's blonde hair into a mess, and the feathers on his back danced in the wind. His whole person turned into a different scenery, and it was eye-catching. The only pity was that his spirited gaze was no longer as bright and spirited as before. Instead, it was filled with a different kind of sadness, enveloping an atmosphere of sadness. It was hard to imagine that the ambitious Doflamingo would be so sad. Treble's mouth squirmed, but he also closed his mouth. He knew that Doflamingo's identity was not simple, and he was not the kind of person who would take risks. They only needed to silently support him. "In the future, I still hope to rule the world, but that little rascal Law. It's a pity that he can't be used." Suddenly, an ancient drawing appeared in his hand. It was drawn with a messy and neat pattern, full of traces of the vicissitudes of time. The paper was waxen yellow, and it was probably hundreds of years old. The unknown paper even had many holes, and it was no different from waste paper. Even if it was dilapidated to such an extent, Doflamingo was still cautious. As if he had received a treasure, he remained cautious and did not dare to be careless. He held it tightly in his hand, and it seemed that it was more precious than his life. "You don't agree to my conditions. Do you dare?" "Kiki." After a while, a gloomy laughter that made one's scalp numb came from Doflamingo's throat. Following his line of sight, one could vaguely see the pattern on the old paper, which recorded all kinds of accurate data. It was an unprecedented behemoth. After its pure area was enlarged, it was even larger than an island. "Oi oi, Treble, the young master doesn't seem to be right recently. I feel like he's missing a string." A sturdy man in armor quietly walked in front of Treble and whispered softly. This person was called Pika, and he was also the mainstay of the Don Quixote pirates. This is just an extreme performance of the young master venting his excessive excitement. Don't care about the details." Treble's mouth twitched, and his fat face changed slightly. Since the last battle of Logetown, Shiki died, and Kaido's whereabouts were unknown. Doflamingo's mood changed greatly. He lost the wisdom of a captain, and his face was gloomy all day long. Since when did the two of you like to gossip so much?" Treble and Pika whispered conversation, and Doflamingo, who had good attainments in observation hockey, naturally heard it, and he just snorted coldly. The two also closed their mouths. "Ha! If those drawings fall into the hands of the pirates of the New World, I'm afraid that the world government will jump up and down to find the celestial dragons to save their lives." Doflamingo smiled, and his whole person showed an unprecedented crazy posture. "Although it's just a simple and casual drawing, if it falls into the hands of some pirates who hate the government and the marine, it will cause a huge shock. When it comes out, it's likely to be the end of an era. Although the conditions for opening it are extremely harsh, these are nothing." For example, a big pirate like Kaido, who hates the government, has a monstrous force, and has countless islands under his command, is fully capable of reviving the terrible thing on the blueprint. Chapter 463. It was because of this mysterious and very deterrent existence that Doflamingo could leisurely walk in the world government, even if he came to the world government as a pirate. No one dared to move. If this kind of nuclear weapon was exposed, it meant that the whole world would be contaminated by nuclear pollution. He became crazy. You want to fight with me? Sooner or later, this world will be mine. The bronze-colored muscles all over his body bulged, and a powerful roar spread out. The invisible impact contained some kind of indescribable special energy fluctuation, and it was rapidly oppressive and soul-sucking. The sky rippled, and the clouds that touched it were instantly annihilated. The progress is so fast, can Haoshiku be used to this extent? Treble was surprised, and then he breathed a sigh of relief. At first, he just appreciated the young Doflamingo, and he had the temperament of a king at such a young age. He gave him the multi-thread fruit, which was also in line with the nature of a pirate. It was completely a gamble. But now, it seemed that he had not sacrificed his life for the sake of the heavens and earth. Instead, he was reaping huge profits today. 2 days later, World Government Mariewa. On the balcony, Dustless looked lazy, lying comfortably on the couch, and the warm sunshine immediately shone. His cheeks were full of sunshine, and his smile was as warm as jade. It was the opposite of the dark him in the past. The ability to make the sky jealous, leisurely looking at the devil fruit with different abilities, Dustless choked in his throat. Even if he now has all kinds of means and countless cards, he was still fascinated by the various abilities of the devil fruit. He thought that the variety of ninjutsu was really an advantage, but now it seems that the same is true for the devil fruit. Some of the devil fruit's abilities are even more shocking than Dustless's imagination. Hancock, how is the collection of devil fruit? Feeling the warmth from the most important part of a man, Dustless felt a burst of excitement. He looked up and saw Hancock, who was working hard with her thin lips. As the saying goes, after a few times, although Hancock was still a little shy, she was not as resistant as before. Perhaps the nature of a slave has been deeply ingrained in her bones, and her thoughts are also deeply ingrained. Oh, Hancock, who was dressed in a black maid costume, wiped her wet lips with a lace scarf and stood respectfully on the right side of Wu Qin. Her voice was pleasant to the ears. There are a lot of gains, but most of them are ordinary goods. There are no refreshing abilities. Hancock's expression instantly changed, and she said rather seriously. Dustless did everything that Dustless asked her to do. Continue collecting. Hearing this, Dustless's eyes flashed with disappointment. There was no specific information about some of the devil fruits in the illustrated handbook, so it was extremely difficult to find them. Dustless waved his hand and signaled Hancock to retreat, then he closed his eyes. Ta-ta-ta, the rhythmic sound of leather shoes sounded, and Hancock was nowhere to be seen. In the spacious room, there was only Wu Qin basking in the sun alone on the balcony. After a while, Dustless opened his eyes again, revealing a puzzled expression. Where did these weird devil fruits originate? A long time ago, Dustless wondered about the origin of devil fruits. These fruits with magical abilities could not fall out of thin air. After the fall of each generation of devil fruit's host, the devil fruit owned by the host will reappear in other places in the world, so it goes on endlessly, as if the curse will continue forever. Dustless, Sama. White Zetsu, who was composed of monotonous white, appeared like a ghost, and the world was like his nest, casual and simple. Is it possible that Doflamingo has arrived at Mariewa? Raising his eyelids, he looked at the void in front of him, and his dead eyes finally showed some vitality. That's not it. Law has been found. After the return of Rogue Town, Dustless told White Setsu word for word about the trace of Law that he got from Dorag's mind. After several days, Law finally got it. Do you want to bring him back immediately? White Setsu asked coldly. Although his strength was extremely ordinary, it was easy to deal with a little demon like Law. White Setsu thought that it would be a trivial matter to fight 10 laws. Hearing this, Dustless thought about it seriously and chose to shake his head. Life should be full of surprises. Planning his life, maybe it will run counter to the results we expect. Just keep an eye on his traces. It is all kinds of sudden accidents that combine to create the special Tragafar law, and forcing him to change his outlook on life will only be counterproductive. Wuchen smiled and said, even if Sun Wukong exhausted all his strength, he still wouldn't be able to jump out of Tathagata's 5-finger mountain. Don't even think about it, now Law is just a child. Not to mention the extreme surgery of immortal surgery, he doesn't even have the ability to control surgeon fruit. The strong hatred born of the killing of Corazon is the driving force that drives Law to continue to become stronger. With this strong hatred, he will have the motivation to improve. In this regard, Law is quite similar to someone Dustless once knew. Sasuke. The experience is surprisingly similar. Although there are some differences in personality, some aspects are also in line, so you are destined to have the same ending. Sasuke, his younger brother, was killed by Dustless himself and was finally burned into nothingness by Amaterasu. In the future, Law is also destined to fall and sacrifice for Dustless's plan. Some people are destined to be the foil of others. Bang bang bang, in the clean and cheerful void, there was an explosion of air bursting without warning. Looking far away, thin lines that could not be captured by the naked eye covered the void. An arrogant figure came into view, stepping straight on these thin lines and rushing over. It seemed to be a direct air attack on Mariehua. Chapter 464. The ability of string fruit is quite broad and involves a lot of fields. Its abilities are also very tricky and powerful. It is a perfect devil fruit, and it is also very practical. Paramecia fruit users who can fly with the help of their ability are few and far between. Is he trying to invade directly? White Setsu said with some surprise as he looked at the black spot roaring from the distant sky. Even if Doflamingo is a Tenryubito, it is impossible for him to be safe and sound by provoking Mariehua directly. The tolerance of Gorosei, 5 elder stars, is not as broad as the world thinks. Some people, such as those with higher strength, will be narrow-minded. It coincides with the rumors, Heavenly Yiksha, Doflamingo is really an unruly and arrogant pirate. He doesn't put anyone in his eyes and dares to be presumptuous in the territory of Gorosei, 5 elder stars. Thinking of the lower half of his body that was destroyed a few days ago when he was spying on information, White Setsu was sweating with lingering fear. Gorosei, 5 elder stars, is by no means a kind person. They are all hungry wolves. They eat people without spitting out the bones. They usually have a hypocritical smile, and if they show any flaws, they will definitely be swallowed. Arrogant. Hearing this, Dustless's dark eyes flashed disapprovingly. Arrogance also needs capital. Doflamingo is barely one of the characters that Dustless looks up to. Although arrogant, it is undeniable that he does have a strong hand to fight with Gorosei, 5 elder stars. Arrogance is also a manifestation of strength. You can understand that arrogance is a way for Doflamingo to demonstrate. With his hands crossed, Dustless smiled with interest. According to Dustless's guess, he does have an unknown trump card in his hand, which is estimated to be the so-called Great National Treasure of Mariehua. Although he doesn't know what it is not difficult to see how shocking it is since it can threaten the world government and Tenryubito. Dustless still vaguely remembers that when Doflamingo took his father's head back to Mariehua, the Tenryubito not only did not return the power to Don Quixote's family, but also turned against Doflamingo. In the end, It seemed that it was because of the big secret treasure that he left safely, and since then, Doflamingo's personality had been seriously distorted, and he began to hate the world of the celestial dragons very much. An ancient weapon doesn't seem likely. Dusla speculated as his brows furrowed. If it was really an ancient weapon, Doflamingo might have controlled it to wander around the world, and according to his hatred for the celestial dragons, he had already destroyed Mariewa. Maybe it's a blueprint. For example, the secret of Heavenly King. White Zoo's eyes lit up. He took a deep breath and said excitedly. Ancient weapons were all special existences with the title of God, so it was easy to imagine how powerful they were. Shaking his head, Dustless concluded with unusual certainty, it shouldn't be possible. What kind of virtue does that kid have? The Heavenly King is not something he can touch. Dustless did not believe that Doflamingo had the ability to decipher the ancient weapons in the poneglyph. And there is no news to prove that the legendary Heavenly King, Uranus, is a battleship-like existence. Take the future Shirahoshi as an example, it is a living life form. If the Heavenly King is really a lifeless battleship, Dustless doesn't think it has anything to do with the surgeon fruit. At the same time, Doflamingo also touched the edge of Mariewa and fell to the red line. A tall, pitch-black figure had been waiting for a long time. His face was gloomy and cold as he stared at Doflamingo with a murderous look. He didn't even try to hide his cold murderous intent. It's not difficult to see that if he can, he definitely wants to kill Doflamingo on the spot. This person was wearing a white Taoist robe with glasses. His skin color was old and bald. The simple and unadorned long saber in his hand never left his body. Surprisingly, he was the bald Gorosei that Wu Qin was most familiar with. Hey, why are you so angry? I just came back to drink and catch up with others. Seeing the appearance of the Gorosei, Doflamingo was as usual. Seeing the Gorosei appear halfway, Doflamingo didn't care and laughed wildly. His voice was wild and unruly. In the face of the Gorosei, who is revered by the world, he just kept calm and was extremely natural. Catch up. It was a fantasy. Don't forget, you are already a stray dog, and the Don Quixote family is no longer a celestial dragon. Mariewa has no friends with you, and the holy land of light and justice will only be tarnished and desecrated by you. The Gorosei's eyes rolled and shot out a cold light. The bald Gorosei with the sword was indifferent and murderous. He did not put Doflamingo's identity as a celestial dragon in his eyes. In this world, only the words of the strongest are the hard truth. It is true that the celestial dragon status is higher than the Gorosei, but it is not something that anyone can provoke. Hey, old man, is your brain not enough for so many years? If I make the information of the drawings public, the whole world will fall into a vortex, and you should know what the consequences will be. The grinding of teeth made a chilling sound, and Doflamingo said meaningfully, the big pirate who escaped some time ago, 100 Beast Kaido, his ambition can swallow the world. If the things in my hands fall into his hands, the collapse of this peaceful world is just around the corner. Not only was Doflamingo not afraid of the 5 elder stars, but he was also threatening him. Are you threatening this old man? Narrowing his eyes, the Gorosei with the sword asked faintly, very casually. In an instant, the surrounding space suddenly solidified, stopped flowing, filled with suffocating oppression, and a buzzing sound of steel resonated and spread out. Looking up, it turned out to be the Gorosei with the ancient sword in his hand shaking excitedly. Let's stop here, I can't play too much. If this guy is angered, he may really kill me. Frowning, Doflamingo secretly thought and decided to stop while he was ahead. Everyone's tolerance has a limit, and the final result of angering him is to burn himself. Chapter 465. Doflamingo came to Mariewa aggressively, and naturally, it is impossible for it to be for the Shichibukai. Sengoku, Admiral and Fleet Admiral Sky also received the orders of Gorosei, 5 elder stars, not long ago. Even dustless is just his own inference. The specific news is only known by Sengoku and Sky, including Gorosei, 5 elder stars. Even if Doflamingo has unparalleled magical powers, he has no way to know. It also indirectly shows that the sudden arrival of Mariewa has nothing to do with Shichibukai. TSK, old man, why must you be so cautious? To you all, I should be a nobody. Staring at the murderous Gorosei, 5 elder stars, Doflamingo was unwilling to lower his posture, and the identity of the celestial dragons actually had no effect on him. In the world where the strong are respected, only the people with big fists have the final say. The status of the celestial dragons is higher than the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, but no one dared to stand on the head of the Gorosei, 5 elder stars. The reason why the stubborn old man in front of him is that he is afraid that Doflamingo will reveal those design drawings. You know your place. Frankly speaking, in our eyes, you are indeed a tiny grain of sand that is not worth mentioning. Since you can recognize your identity and situation, I advise you not to do stupid things in the end. Otherwise, you won't be able to escape from Mariewa's inescapable net even if you have wings. The bald Gorosei, 5 elder stars, with a sword said coldly and did not put Doflamingo, a celestial dragon, in his eyes at all, because a few years ago, their Don Quixote family had abandoned the identity of God and became a commoner. To put it bluntly, they are celestial dragons who have no rights at all. Ignorant fool, do you think you can do whatever you want with the design drawings of ancient weapons? Looking at Doflamingo with a sneer, the bald Gorosei, 5 elder stars, with a sword said contemptuously in his heart. It is undeniable that maybe the pirates of the New World gather all their strength and there is a possibility of 1 or 2 layers to rebuild the strength of the revived ancient soldiers, but that is impossible. The fleets under the pirates of the New World have the eyes of the government and marine. Once there is an abnormal movement, they will be annihilated before they become a big thing. The reason why they had tolerated Doflamingo so many times was because the government also wanted the blueprints in his hands. Moreover, if the blueprints were exposed to the public, there would definitely be a series of problems. Anyway, Doflamingo was quite sensible. He only did some pirate business with devil fruit and he didn't dare to do anything out of the ordinary. Don't even think about escaping. I remember that a while ago, groups of slaves escaped from Mariewa. Hearing this, Doflamingo retorted without showing any weakness. Doflamingo's bronze face was full of laughter. He was certain that the 5 honored stars would not fall out with him over such a trivial matter. Humph, good for you. If you think that Mariewa can still retreat safely after doing something intolerable, you can try. With a snort, the body of the bald Gorosei instantly turned into an afterimage, and the whole person disappeared. The words were harsh, but many flamenco entered Mariewa. It could also be considered a disguised compromise. If I knew that you would do this, I would be afraid, and I finally chose to give in. After a while, Doflamingo breathed a sigh of relief and then stepped into the red line with his head held high. As a pirate, he stepped into the world's most righteous, holy land. The destination is also quite strange. It stands to reason that the place where the strongest people in Mariewa are concentrated should be the location of the government office, but Doflamingo went to the place where the Tenryubido gathered. It's just a design that's limited to theory. If I can exchange it for a life-saving umbrella. This deal is worth it. Doflamingo clenched his teeth and said resolutely, dispelling the hesitation in his heart. Ancient weapons are extremely precious, but compared to life, everything is small and fragile. As for giving it to the world government in exchange for protection, Doflamingo just thought about it and threw it out of the window. Pirates are not moral and cruel. To some extent, the world government often behaves more shamelessly. Getting rid of the donkey after it has outlived its usefulness is not unique. Trading with the Gorosei, 5 honored stars, is tantamount to a direct punishment. Oh, this is interesting. In the lush grass full of weeds, White Setsu poked his head out and looked at the leaving Doflamingo with interest and surprise. Doflamingo seemed to be aware of the malicious spying, and Doflamingo's observation haki quietly spread, and there was no one in the world that came into his eyes. A mere marine, chasing me, a Tenryubito, around the world. Turning around, he continued to walk towards the luxurious buildings in front of him. Doflamingo's face was gloomy. All of this was the fault of his dead father. Even if he killed his father and brother with his own hands, he did not have the slightest sense of guilt. If he did not give up the power of the Tenryubito, he would not have such a miserable childhood. In the final analysis, all of this is because his strength is not strong enough and his background is not strong enough. There is no shortcut to increasing strength, and it takes endless years to accumulate. In desperation, Doflamingo can only find another way and choose a stronger background. A strong background that is enough to cause fear, and the marine and the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, can barely survive. Even a few months ago, Doflamingo did not think that there was such a transcendent existence. It was not until the fierce collision in Logue Town that he realized that the essence of the world he had seen before was just the tip of the iceberg. After some thought, he also had the idea of holding a big thigh. The design drawings of ancient weapons are useless in his hands. The officials of the world government secretly observe his every move. He is afraid that as soon as the idea of building appears, the government will mercilessly obliterate him. Handing over the design drawings of ancient weapons can also divert the attention of the world government, and at the same time, he can get excellent protection. Doflamingo does not think that there is any loss in this business. Anyway, those data are just unconfirmed theories, and only God knows whether it can be made. Chapter 466. In the ancient room, time is isolated, and you can't even see your fingers, it's dark. On the sofa, you can vaguely see a young silhouette, breathing evenly and smoothly, blending into the surrounding darkness. Even if it's close, it has a sense of being far away. Ta-ta-ta-ta, in the slightly cold corridor, there was a sound of leather shoes twisting, from far to near, and the faint sound gradually became louder. Dustless, who was resting, opened his eyes, and his deep and shining pupils were as bright as beads. An hour ago, Doflamingo had suddenly paid a visit to the Lois family. As the only direct descendant of the Lois family and the last remaining clansman, only Dustless had come out to welcome him. However, he was lazy by nature, so he directly asked Hancock to call Doflamingo over. Before, Dustless was wondering why Doflamingo was looking for him. With the information secretly obtained by White Setsu a few minutes ago, the confusion was relieved. Young but cunning like a fox. Dustless's face showed that he just woke up from a dream, and he sighed. At the same time, he scolded in his heart. He completely pulled up a stone and dropped it on his own feet. He must pay the price for scheming against others. Now he came to Mariewa to ask for help, but he can't blame others. Dustless, who wanted to directly let Doflamingo go, thought about it and chose to meet him. The premise of cooperation is a win-win situation, and he definitely understands this kind of little thing that the world knows. Ta-ta-ta, after a few more breaths, the sound of leather shoes walking was getting closer and closer, coming slowly along the dark corridor on the right. A gust of wind came from the dark hall in front of him, and Doflamingo, who was following Hancock, frowned. The cold wind passed through his body, and he couldn't help but shiver. He originally intended to use Lois South, but an absurd idea suddenly appeared in his mind. He is not enjoying the shade under a big tree, but doing something stupid like a sheep entering the tiger's mouth. For a time, he also had the idea of retreating, but his whole body was full of some kind of indescribable magic, leading Doflamingo's whole body forward. until he stepped into the dark hole. Hancock was obviously very familiar with the dark space and turned on the gorgeous light. The serene Dustless immediately entered Doflamingo's line of sight. He was completely different from the other celestial dragons. His clean and valiant appearance alone was enough to impress people. More than 99% of the rest of Mariewa's celestial dragons were fat and pig-like freaks. Looking around, Dustless was just casually sitting there, yet Doflamingo felt a sense of oppression. That unfathomable strength made him instinctively take a step back. What profound strength! Doflamingo's pupils suddenly shrank as he said in a deep voice. A true expert's aura did not need to deliberately leak out their own aura. Dustless was one such example. He was able to blend into nature and immerse himself in the surrounding space. It was not nature that controlled Dustless. On the contrary, it was Dustless that controlled nature. No matter who it is, just sit down. Seeing that Doflamingo was a little restrained, Dustless showed a magnanimous smile. In his eyes, pirates and marines were only one word apart. The gentle smile was like a spring breeze, making people involuntarily quiet, and the tense gods relaxed, and a bumpy heart was unprecedentedly calm. When Doflamingo saw this, not only did he not feel relaxed in the slightest, his chest instead felt as heavy as Mount Tai. The formless and boundless pressure that came into contact with him caused him to have exceptional difficulty in breathing. It could be determined that Dustless was absolutely not a good person. It was even worse than the 5 honored stars that devoured people without spitting out the bones. Looking up and looking at the unique symbol of celestial dragons on Dustless's chest, Doflamingo clenched his fists unwillingly. If it weren't for his dead father's naivety, he would now enjoy the privileges of celestial dragons like Dustless. Although I am still a celestial dragon now, the gap is like clouds and earth. Doflamingo is now only a celestial dragon, because his father insisted on giving up his identity as a god. It is equivalent to losing all privileges. Looking at Dustless intently, Doflamingo nodded and sat on the sofa opposite Dustless. After a simple preparation of words, Doflamingo was about to speak, but Dustless's light voice suddenly sounded, and the words he prepared for a long time collapsed in an instant. 100 Beast Kaido's recent movements are very strange, and it seems that he is deliberately approaching the Don Quixote pirates. A few words were a heavy blow to Doflamingo, and it was precisely because of this that he had to put down his old face and return to the source of evil that he deeply hated. The reason why Whitebeard fought with Kaido, in addition to the long-accumulated grievances between the two, was because of the strange devil fruit, and it was Doflamingo who spread the news. It is no wonder that he is so scared. Now that 100 Beast Kaido is strangely close to the stronghold of the Don Quixote pirates, if a war breaks out, the Don Quixote pirates will be annihilated in an instant. According to Dustless's inference, this is the fundamental reason why Doflamingo risked his life to come to Mariewa. It's true, Kaido, that bastard. Doflamingo nodded gloomily, and his eyes flashed with surprise. Since Dustless knew the cause of the situation so well, it meant that he had sent people to investigate in advance. Doflamingo was also very envious of his ability to foresee the future. Every time, he would be able to look down on the development of the situation from the most appropriate angle with the attitude of a winner. I already know your intentions, and there is no problem in sheltering you and your pirates, but Wuchen didn't beat around the bush. He got straight to the point and said, everything is about benefits and harm. It's hard for me to agree to offend Kaido for you, and I won't gain anything from it. I think you also understand that those legendary pirates will not let you go just because of the name of Tenryubito. After that, Dustless chose to be silent. The words have been said so thoroughly, and Doflamingo, who has been fighting for several years, certainly understands what it means. Chapter 467. Doflamingo breathed a sigh of relief when he heard this. He was really afraid that Dustless would beat around the bush, and he was prepared for this. It was impossible for him to offend Dustless just because they were of the same race. No one would take risks if there were no benefits. This is my bargaining chip. With a confident smile, Doflamingo reluctantly took out the design that he had kept for many years. The worn paper had some holes and wax yellow. It was obviously an antique from many years ago. Some of the precise data and words on it attracted Dustless's attention. Pluto, the king of hell. How can this guy have Pluto's design? Shouldn't it be the legendary king, Olanos? Dustless's eyes widened, and his face was full of strangeness. Dustless, who has read a lot of history of Mariewa, knows that in the ancient times, Water 7 built the most evil super battleship in history, Pluto. As for the specific reason for building Pluto, there is no detailed record. Dustless guessed that it should be used in some kind of war. It is not difficult to see from the design that the construction of Pluto is a time-consuming and labor-consuming project. It takes several years. Such a huge project is obviously impossible to be used for viewing and showing off. Dustless is not interested in what urgent things happened in the ancient times. The only thing that puzzles him is why Pluto's design appeared in Doflamingo's hands. I got this from the old man Tom in Water 7. Doflamingo replied in an extremely unnatural manner as he dodged Dustless's questioning gaze. Clearly, he was deliberately concealing the truth. It seems that there is more than one design of Pluto. At least he can be sure that there is more than one design of Pluto. No one knows if there are other designs of Pluto around the world. This is the power to destroy the world. Doflamingo's eyes were full of fanaticism. Pluton is a super weapon with the name of God. It is said that just a casual shot can make an island disappear from the sea and raise it. Its power is unprecedented, and even Mariewa and Marine Headquarters can easily flatten it. Doflamingo's voice was filled with endless charm, bewitching Dustless's rationality. After a while, Dustless only sneered in response. The power to destroy the world. That was indeed the case, but right now, it was just a theoretical blueprint. Whether or not it could be built was still a big question mark. A straightforward person does not resort to insinuations. Just a Pluto's design is enough to make it difficult for me to protect you. Shaking his head, Doflamingo's design did not move his heart. He couldn't even raise his thoughts. You want to play this game? With a wave of his hand, Doflamingo shattered the exquisite stone table in front of him. He was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. He didn't expect Dustless to have such a black-on-black attribute. His old face was twitching, and he glared at Dustless. The cold murderous intent appeared on his face. The Pluto's design was put away by him, and now he's trying to get something for nothing. Presumptuous, how dare you, don't forget your identity, and where is this place? Hancock stared at Doflamingo, and a majestic, collapsing energy fluctuation erupted from her tender body. The hot air wave was no different from an erupting volcano, and it was unusually hot. The tyrannical power just gathered on Doflamingo, indicating that he should not act rashly, otherwise, he would have to bear the consequences. This woman is actually using Haushiku Haki. Doflamingo's eyes were filled with astonishment, and his face was full of disbelief. This dress is obviously a maid, but she has the quality of a king. How can he not be surprised, especially this Haushiku? Although it is not as good as him, it has obviously reached a level where it can be used flexibly. A mere servant has such ability, and it also indirectly shows how unfathomable the strength of the master who controls her is. Could it be that he is? An unprecedentedly absurd thought suddenly appeared in his mind, and an unprecedentedly terrifying thought was born along with it. The corners of his mouth trembled, and he was just about to open his mouth to ask when Wu Chen's eternal indifferent voice spread out. Doflamingo, waving his hand, he signaled Hancock to converge her aura. Wu Chen's eyes were as calm as water. He quietly looked at Doflamingo and said bluntly, "In fact, from the moment you decided to find me, it was like a sheep entering the tiger's mouth, despicable. With a muffled groan, Doflamingo sat back down on the sofa. Out of sight, out of mind. Despicable. It's ridiculous, compared to you pirates who commit all kinds of crimes. I feel like I'm the incarnation of God, a kind savior of the world. More than 95% of the pirates were evil existences that raped and looted. There were only a handful of people like Luffy who were truly adventurous and wanted to fulfill their dreams. Using Pluton's blueprint in exchange for my protection, this is just your wishful thinking. In this world where the strong are respected, I can use my fist to take Pluton's blueprint by force. Wu Qin said in an extremely gentle tone. Although it was rude, it was an undeniable fact. Everyone in the world had such a way of doing things. It was like a unique order. As long as one's fist was big enough, one could snatch it by force. In fact, it's not impossible to agree to your conditions. Of course, before that, there must be a condition. Seeing Doflamingo's face full of despair, Dustless smiled, and the former's heart was filled with hope. Just say it. Doflamingo asked in a hoarse voice, trying to hide his calmness. The request is very simple. I will not only help you solve the crisis brought by Kaido, but also help you avoid the invasion of the Marine, and even let your Don Quixote family become the king of Dressrosa again. From now on, you and your crew must stay in Dressrosa to secretly build Pluton. As for the manpower problem, I will naturally help you solve it. Chapter 468. The reason why he supported Doflamingo to become the king of Dressrosa is also a whim. It is not a problem to count on the world government to build Pluton, but the final buyer must be the Gorosei, 5 elder stars. As for Dustless, he can go wherever it is cool, there is no place for him. Doflamingo's expression solidified when he heard this, and his eyebrows were deeply squeezed together. Then he lowered his head in thought, and his eyes flashed with burning brilliance. In this way, the advantages are self-evident. He can avoid Kaido and Marine's invasion, which means that he can unilaterally face the pressure from pirates in the future. But asking him to willingly be Dustless's lackey was really forcing him to do something. The king of Dressrosa. His rough iron fist clenched, and Doflamingo's eyes were intoxicated and yearning. It seems that he has already seen the scene of him becoming a king in the future and overlooking the world. Doflamingo is a different kind of pirate. He is obsessed with the Pirate King, and he is very happy with the legendary One Piece. At the same time, because of the psychological shadow of childhood, the idea of power is deeply ingrained in his bones, and he is also the object of his enthusiasm. 800 years ago, the Don Quixote family was the original royal family of Dressrosa. If he can sit on the throne again, it can be regarded as repaying his ancestors. Maybe the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, will not give him face, and it is not impossible to be humiliated. Thinking of the strength and indifference of the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, his impassioned heart was poured with cold water, and his fanatical look converged, and Doflamingo muttered with uncertainty in his heart. Doflamingo has never heard of anyone who can talk face to face with the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, not only because the 5 of them are the highest power in the world, but also because of their earth-shaking strength, and even when the 5 of them work together, their strength is far more than 10 times that of an individual. This guy is tempted. I thought he would refuse me. Shaking his head slightly, Dustless said dully. He thought that this kid would not accept his conditions and resist hard, but he didn't expect that he would abandon his ideas and dreams so easily, which is indeed different from Dustless's expectations. On second thought, Dustless also felt relieved. Doflamingo didn't have such an unprecedented dream now. The current him was just a rat crossing the street. Everyone wanted to beat him up. His identity was so simple. Whether it is the Marine headquarters, the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, or 100 Beast Kaido, they all regard Doflamingo as a thorn in their eyes, and can't wait to get rid of him. Now he is in a dangerous situation. Those 5 old fellows will give me some face. Dustless explained with a chuckle after seeing through Doflamingo's hidden concern at a glance. The Gorisei, 5 Elder Stars. The Gorisei, 5 Elder Stars, is 5 Elder Stars is Gorisei, 5 Elder Stars, is Gorisei, 5 Elder Stars, actually not Dare 2's. Gorisei's Kaido not S Gorisei, Kaido. In the future, he will recruit Doflamingo in the way of Shichibukai, to explain everything silently. If I can be the king of Dressrosa again, and get rid of the marine and 100-beast Kaido, the hesitation in his eyes was replaced by determination, and Doflamingo gritted his teeth and said with hatred, I can help you build Pluton and turn this world upside down. In the end, Doflamingo almost roared out, it seems that only in this way can he vent the infinite anger and gloom in his heart. People under the eaves have to bow their heads. If he does not comply with Dustless's conditions, he may not even be able to step out of Mariewa, and the only ending is death. His body is like a willow fluttering in the wind, only a few words, but it is the true portrayal of Doflamingo today. It's not a day's work to make Pluton. I once asked someone to estimate that even with the participation of powerful scientists, it will take more than 10 or even 20 years to complete. This is the case when all the facilities are complete. Otherwise, it can only be extended indefinitely. Doflamingo said truthfully, Pluton's exaggeration is beyond imagination. Its basic outline is larger than some islands, and it also needs a huge dock and various facilities. The most important thing is that without the participation of powerful scientists, the foundation of more than 10 or 20 years will be regressed indefinitely. Those precise data are not something that pirates like them can understand. That's true, we must have a strong scientific research team. Dustless nodded in agreement. Doflamingo doesn't understand, and he doesn't understand. Vegapunk. Doflamingo tentatively suggested as he thought of the world's most powerful mind. Doflamingo also recognized his position, at least he has no plans to leave Dustless. There is Dustless in front of him, the world government behind him, and the marine headquarters in the middle. What kind of situation is self-evident? There is no need. Others will do. Vegapunk's goal is too big. Dustless waved his hand, indicating that there is no need to do so. Vegapunk is too conspicuous. Technology is production. This sentence is vividly reflected in him, and the role he plays is even more than that of a marine admiral. Caesar Kalong is on the same level as Vegapunk. Caesar Kalong, known as the number 2, is actually the same genius. His scientific talent is not worse than Vegapunk, and this kid also has a record of doing evil experiments. He designed Pluton, an unprecedented super battleship. After learning about it, he will probably send himself to the door. Him. Hearing this, Doflamingo had a strange look on his face. It was not that he had never heard of the mad scientist Caesar Kalong. If it were not for the fact that the current situation was too dangerous, he would have captured Caesar to conduct another experiment. Although his brain is sick and unreliable, he is indeed a top scientist who can compete with Vegapunk. Doflamingo replied truthfully, and he couldn't help admiring Dustless's ability to listen to everything. For him, who was born at the top of the world, Caesar Kalong is just a tiny grain of sand. Chapter 469. Everyone's life has a period of ups and downs, and now it was exactly the unfavorable period for Caesar. As a top scientist of the government, he was suppressed by Vegapunk, a super existence. Caesar and Vegapunk had accumulated resentment for a long time, and they were like fire and water. Because of Caesar's extreme personality, Vegapunk was hostile and disgusted with him. People who walk different paths cannot work together. This also led to differences of opinion between the two. Vegapunk's status was higher than Caesar's, and the one who would fail in the end would definitely be him. I heard that he was locked up in prison a while ago. With a bright face, Dustless looked at his thumb rhythmically and said calmly, although a prison break is rare, it is not unique. Every year, fugitives escape from prison. Other people can escape from prison, and so can Caesar. These words undoubtedly meant that Dustless wanted to help Caesar escape from prison. Although with Dustless's current identity, he could even bail Caesar out, the impact of it would be unparalleled. A person with a long lifespan colluding with the world's craziest scientist, not only would the world have wild and fanciful thoughts, but the 5 elder stars would also get to the bottom of it. At that time, it would inevitably cause trouble, and it would also attract countless spies and trouble. The development and construction of Pluto, this kind of crazy plan would be destroyed if it was exposed to the public. Even if the 5 elder stars were as magnanimous as the sky, they still couldn't tolerate it. The place where Caesar is imprisoned is the deep-sea prison. It has been built for decades, and the only one who escaped was the fallen golden lion Shiki. Doflamingo laughed sarcastically when he heard the words. His tone was very casual and exaggerated. Obviously, he didn't mean what he said. As long as he had Dustless's cooperation, it would not be difficult to help Caesar escape from prison. The original prison warden was called Shilyu of the Rain. He was powerful and had amazing swordsmanship, but he was a bloodthirsty person. In the end, he was forcibly imprisoned. The current warden was called Magellan, and he was also very strong. Many years ago, Doflamingo had been eyeing Caesar, this fat sheep. When he was locked up in the deep-sea prison, Doflamingo's plan to rescue Caesar was also put on the stage, and there was already a detailed process. In fact, it's not difficult to get Caesar out of hell, as long as you cooperate. Raising his eyelids, Dustless looked at Doflamingo indifferently and said without care, the word cooperate is meaningless. Just invade directly. Without hesitation, Dustless vetoed Doflamingo's proposal and said in a carefree manner. This is indeed the case. Doflamingo was startled at first, but soon agreed. If Dustless were to join the team, the so-called cooperation would indeed be unnecessary. There would be no need to go through the trouble of formulating a detailed evolution. All they needed to do was to charge around recklessly. You've misunderstood my meaning. I am not the one who did it. Shaking his head, Dustless did not plan to do it himself. This kind of hard work could be left to his subordinates. There was no need for him to do it himself. Hearing this, Doflamingo's face twitched. He suddenly felt that it was extremely difficult to converse with Dustless. This trustworthy boss always liked to keep people in suspense. With the power of the Don Quixote pirates alone, attacking the deep-sea prison is no different from looking for death, and if they can't clean up the mess quickly, the highest combat power of the Marine headquarters should come in person. Don't worry, someone will cooperate with you. Seeing Doflamingo's eyes flickering, Dustless smiled mysteriously. At the same time, a bare-chested man with only a simple black skin slowly walked out of the dark space. His amber eyes were extremely sharp, no different from an eagle's. The sharp black knife on his back flickered with a cold light. His eyes emitted a faintly discernible sharp sword aura, making Doflamingo's hair stand on end. He was on guard against the mysterious newcomer. He felt an unprecedented threat and oppression from this man who suddenly appeared. Looking closely, it was the great pirate Hawkeye Mihawk. Why are you in Mariewa? Aren't you a prisoner pursued by the government? Hawkeye. Seeing the appearance of Hawkeye, Doflamingo looked gloomy and the killing intent in his tone was undisguised. You are not wanted by the government. Why are you here? Hawkeye asked Doflamingo softly as he leaned against the wall. Seeing this, Dustless cast an interested look. It was not difficult to hear from the tone of the two of them that there should have been some kind of unknown grievance at some point in the past. After a little silence, Dustless was too lazy to ask more. There are inextricable relationships between the great pirates. Whether it's grievances or old hatred, now we are teammates in the same trench. I hate traitors the most, and I hate despicable villains who stab people in the back. The grievances of the past are gone today. If this was known by Dustless's teammates in the last world, they would vomit blood and die because the person who is the best at cheating his teammates is himself. After saying that, Wu Chen's domineering aura gushed out. The spacious room shifted and he came to another space-time. In an instant, the gravity was dozens of times higher. It was as difficult as climbing a mountain to move. Caw caw caw, the delicate floor shattered into granules, causing Hancock, a maid, to have a big headache. She doesn't know how many times the Lois family has changed the floor. Under the influence of this monstrous aura, any thoughts of disobedience would be easily obliterated on the spot. Doflamingo felt his scalp tingle. Under the shadow of death that he had never experienced before, he could not muster up any thoughts of resistance. Doflamingo is not afraid of life and death, but if he dies so miserably, it will be another matter. Haoshiku Hawkeye. Hawkeye's sharp eyes flashed with surprise, and he lowered his head and was silent. His eyes quietly spread and took Hawkeye and Hancock into his eyes. Doflamingo's cold and dead heart was strangely hot, and even his face was flushed with morbid excitement. This team that I joined at the last minute can really fulfill my dream and turn this world upside down. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.